Sex and happiness both enrich our lives, yet it's surprising how few people can honestly say that they enjoy regular and fulfilling sex or describe themselves and their lives as happy. Host Laurie Handlers helps you to experience real intimacy and happiness. You'll laugh a little, learn a little, and we hope put a smile on your face and a smile in your life. Now here's Laurie.
Hi everybody, this is Laurie Handlers, and you're listening to an episode of Sex and Happiness, a show about your sex and your happiness. And today will be no disappointment. Today will be more towards your sexiness and your happiness. As always, my guest today is Orla Quinn. As an Irish Shamanic practitioner and Sacred Sexuality coach, she works with expanded energies to help people source their sexual sovereignty so that they can live to their full creative potential and self-sourced love. Orla leads individuals and groups back to their soul truth. She inspires them to follow their soul purpose and to ultimately walk the high path of love as service to others. So welcome to my show today, Orla. It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you very much for having me. And,
and
hello to all your viewers, listeners.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, it's great to have you. And today we're going to talk about conscious sexuality. Like, what does that mean? Why does that mean? But before we get to that, how did you get here? How did you become somebody interested in conscious sexuality? How did you get a shamanic path? How did you find out about sexual sovereignty? Most people didn't grow up knowing they were going to be this.
No, and I certainly didn't. In fact, I grew up in quite the opposite. I grew up in a very Catholic, conservative background in Northern Ireland, at the backdrop of the Troubles conflict zone. So my reality was far from the reality of conscious sexuality. And it was a long path of awakening. It was a soul searching one. I've always followed the truth, so that was always my compass. I guess that's what brought me onto the path. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, that must have been something. Growing up in Northern Ireland during most of that conflict just must have been scary, traumatic, and all kinds of things. So I'm glad you found your way out.
Yeah, Laurie. I think it gave a certain backdrop to. I suppose you don't realize that you're in these kind of traumatic situations until you get out of them, right? And it was only until I was much older, when I was 18, and actually a bit older, because I went to college. I went to college in Belfast as well, so it was still in Northern Ireland. It's really only after I left college and started to spread my wings and go abroad that I realized actually there's a whole different reality out there. And my norm, the norm I had growing up, was not most people's norm. And I suppose my norm would have been one of high stress, that the freeze, fight or flight,
yes,
kind of, with the nervous system. In these kind of conflict zones, you don't realize actually how highly strung you actually are, how much you are on high alert all the time. That is your norm. So it's really until you come outside of these situations that you realize how different you actually are from most people. So yeah, that has been a process of very much healing of the nervous system, right? So really coming into full embodiment of this, almost like a new embodiment, right? So changing those old programs, those old beliefs, certainly that old state of fear and high alert, into one of peace, calm, and love.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
process.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear it. I wish that for everybody else in war-torn and conflict ridden climates and places, for sure. And I imagine that conscious sexuality, coming into conscious sexuality, helped. That's a big embodiment piece. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did you like stumble upon conscious sexuality or seek conscious sexuality? How did your radar or they call it teleological mechanism, something that eliminates things and searches out other things. So how did your mechanism search out conscious sexuality?
Yeah, well, it goes back to what I was saying before about my compass being my truth. And, and I've always had a very clear insight as to what I'm supposed to do. I started off as a teacher. I qualified as a teacher. I thought I wanted to teach. So I went through that training, and I practiced for many years until I got disillusioned. I became disillusioned by the kind of the curriculum, the institutions that I was teaching in. I knew there was a higher truth for me out there. That's when I started a new career in international development, and I went abroad, and I became interested in human rights, and I worked in that area of human rights, educating people and helping people to become advocates for human rights. And again, I thought, this is my higher truth. This is my passion, right? This is what I'm here to do. Again, I became disillusioned. I became disillusioned with the sector that I was working in, and knowing that's not the ultimate truth. There's more to seek. There's more to seek out there. And I suppose that's what started. This was around 2012, and I was starting to get downloads. That's when my ethereal body started to come in, and I thought I was being possessed. I was scared. I was really scared. I couldn't really make sense of any of this, because my world was academia. My world was mental. So sort of having these altered states of embodiment scared the hell out of me. I didn't know how to manage it, and those around me that I was asking couldn't really help me, couldn't really explain it. So I went to Peru. I quit my job. My body was starting to change, and that caused sickness. And so I had to leave my full-time employment. Like, I had to actually leave my career. And I went to Peru. I went to the Sacred Valley in Peru, and I spent a long time in Peru. I could say, going on that soul path of finding, the truth of who I am and what I'm here, and that being the soul truth. I mean, like, the soul truth of who I am, and not the learned version of me, but the actual soul side of me, the soul part of me, the soul truth of me, of what I'm here to do. And that's the shamanic. That was the shamanic path. That eventually then, it was the going into the depths, right? So letting go of a lot of the ego, a lot of the mental constructs that I had established in my career, spanning over, almost 15 years, letting go of that old Orla, that old version of Orla, and sort of coming into this new being that was very much destined to do this work. And so it was a long path of transformation, a very difficult path of transformation. It didn't happen overnight. It took many years to really establish, and it was the shamanic path that brought me to conscious sexuality. It brought me actually to the gates of ISTA, where I ultimately met you, Laurie. But ISTA, being the Institute of Temple Arts, and because ISTA works in the shamanic realm, it was a very natural path for me. It was almost, I knew why I sought that out, because that was the path I had worked on. I'd come from that path of shamanic techniques, shamanic practices, shamanic methods, to really do that self-discovery work. So ISTA was like my home from home.
Yeah. I see how it all fits together now. I mean, I didn't know all this, so it makes perfect sense that that you would find your way to sacred sexuality, and connect shamanism with sexuality, with spirituality, I mean, the same way that ISTA has. So now you are planning and executing a conscious sexuality summit. And I imagine this all comes out of the work that you did in Peru and then the work that you did at ISTA and so on. It's like, you're culminating things. You're bringing things together in a culmination of all of this. So tell us a little bit about the creation of the summit, and then we'll have a little break, and then we'll come back and we'll find out more details about you and the things you're focusing on. So
Sure.
What's the Conscious Sexuality Summit?
Okay, so the Conscious Sexuality Summit is being launched. It's currently it's currently in that planning stage, right? I'm recording, and it's being launched in June. It'll be launched on the 21st of June.
And that's, I'm putting the date in 2019 because sometimes people listen to these podcasts much later than the year or they listen to them again. So June 21st, 2019.
Yeah, right. So it's going to go live on the 21st. It will be on my website, thereafter. So even if your viewers miss it, or your listeners miss it, they can access it afterwards. Yeah. So my intention was to create a platform where people who are practicing this work, that are doing tantra work, or who are practicing sacred sexuality in their own practice, working with others, working on relationship healing, coaching, particularly in Ireland. I wanted to give them a voice. I wanted to give them a platform to talk about their work. And the main reason to that's one reason, to give them a platform to be able to speak to their work.
Mm-hmm.
But the overall sort of aim was to actually get all of these messages out to the mainstream, because, I don't know in the US, but certainly in Ireland, this topic is still quite fringe. It's still quite marginalized.
Mm-hmm.
And, I feel like those of us who are doing the work have a responsibility to speak about it, just like you're doing so fantastically with your show, Laurie. We have a responsibility to talk about this, and to spread this message that, not just to work in our little pods, but actually to share this message, because I feel society is ready for it. And so it's our responsibility to put the word out there. And certainly in Ireland, I know that this is the first of a kind. There has been no summits in Ireland on this topic of conscious sexuality. Well, certainly I don't think sexuality at all. Because a lot of practitioners are just working, in their own areas, and they haven't had a chance to kind of look up and see who else is doing this work, and certainly an opportunity to maybe broadcast what they do, talk about the wisdom that they have and how and why they do the work they do. And so I think this summit is going to serve a real purpose in for Ireland and beyond, just to show people the powerful work that this is, and that that they can access, given all they need to do is know about it. That's the first step. Right.
The first step is to know that there's something available, and that if they're thinking about it, they're not alone. I mean, for me, it was amazing to teach in Ireland. I feel I was privileged to teach in Ireland twice. And I asked point blank, and at one of the classes, it was probably the class you were in, how many people had suffered sexual abuse, and every single hand went up. I mean, so there's things going on. I don't know if they're all still going on, but there were trespasses against the person without consent, in everybody's background. Every hand went up. The only hands that didn't go up was there was a participant from Australia and another participant from England, I think, and one from the US. Those three people's hands didn't go up. Everybody else's hands in a class of 30 or so, hands went up. So I'm glad you're doing this. I think it's important. It's important to open the conversation so people know that they can heal and people know that they're not alone and they don't have to be hiding anymore about trespasses that happen. I mean, that's just one piece of the puzzle. You know, the other pieces of the puzzle is there's joy and freedom and sovereignty to be had from conscious sexuality. Wonderful stuff. But the first part that we have to dig up is the healing piece that needs to take place. And I was flabbergasted. I just, for the hell of it, asked the question and the hands flew up. And it didn't matter what gender, it didn't matter the age of the people, nothing mattered. It was just like everybody from Ireland raised their hand. So can I say something about this, Laurie? Because it's you know, the stat is 1 in 4. You know, it's really high. It's extremely high, and it's, you know, and it's a very sad, unique situation in Ireland with regards to this particular, you know, trauma of sexual abuse, and it's all kinds of sexual abuse, but very often it does happen in childhood, and that 1 in 4 is children. So I think it's definitely a particular case in Ireland, and you know, and I don't want to get into there's many reasons for that, right? And it's vast, but I do feel that this is the reason why I titled my my summit not only Conscious Sexuality and subtitles The Truth of the Matter, because I do believe what you're saying is, you know, what you're saying about, there's joy, there's happiness, there's, you know, the conscious sexuality route brings so much open-hearted love, but before you get there, you need to heal the trauma, right? And this is where we are in Ireland. You know, this is where you know, in terms of the collective, let's just talk about the collective consciousness of this society. There's still trauma here from that abuse that has happened over generations, you know, like this is generational. Yes. There's a lot of it that's carried in the lineage as well as in, you know, on person. So this is where certainly the campaign, the Me Too campaign, revelations, recent revelations of the abuse that happened in these church institutions in Ireland. These have been, you know, these revelations have been outpouring sort of over the last decade in Ireland. So there's been so much truth being spoken. And so it's giving courage to those victims who have their own story that they've been holding on to for far too long. And it's giving them the courage to speak out also, right? And name, you know, seek justice for their abuse. Yes. All right, well, we're actually gonna take a break here. When we come back, we're gonna really focus on some of the subjects that you're hoping to bring out, aiming to bring out in this summit, and because I don't want to focus on the trauma only, although I think it was important to name it and to speak it. I have a lot of feelings about it, and how it's interwoven into Irish people's personalities. Like there's a way of disempowerment that's happened by being like conquered and divided, not only by a nation, by another country, but also by uprooting the institutions of the very country. So it's very political in nature. And there's so much to say. Let me just say this and then we'll go to break. I just came from Scotland. I was for the first time in Scotland, and I noticed similar patterns there. And I said to my co-facilitator, James, who's Scottish, I said, it doesn't feel as horrific as what's happened in Ireland. And he said, oh, it was just as horrific. It's just that it happened earlier. It's longer ago. So what happened in Ireland is more close. And then I saw some of the similar patterns of people just not being able to speak their truth or feel themselves or feel empowered when speaking, and needing all kinds of permission to just be. And I would just go, come on, just spit it out. Like, it's okay. There's nobody in this room judging you, like, just get a little more arrogant or something, It's like, but I saw some similar polarities, similar things, similar. So it brought me all back to being in Ireland, those few times that I was there. And so this is good. I'm totally in favor of what you're doing. I'm excited about what you're doing, and I want to bring this to as many people who will hear it and use it and take it and run with it, and heal themselves. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about what actually the kinds of things you're going to be focused on in the summit. If you just tuned in, you're listening to Sex and Happiness, and I'm Laurie Handlers, the host, and I'm interviewing Orla Quinn, and she's putting together a summit on conscious sexuality, which will go throughout the world, but will be focused primarily on Irish practitioners, Irish teachers, people who are bringing the gift of conscious sexuality to Ireland. Hallelujah. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Did you ever stop to think that love is your birthright? That you don't need to earn it or prove it? You just need to live it. I'm personally inviting you to the path of true love, power, and freedom. If you're ready to enliven your soul through conscious sexuality and dive deeply into profound ritual that frees your heart, I'm inviting you to join us for the Spiritual Sexual Shamanic Experience. This is better known to most of you as the ISTA Level 1 training. I am regularly leading these courses along with a team of accomplished facilitators all around the world. As a matter of fact, these trainings have taken place in 34 countries. For information on when I'm leading, go to butterflyworkshops.com. Or for a full schedule, you can go to schooloftemplearts.org. Please consider this invitation seriously, because love and freedom are your natural state of being.
Are you wondering what book to read to jumpstart your life? Get the best from relationships? Attain the deepest feelings of intimacy? Do you want the best sex along with great happiness? Get your copy of Sex and Happiness, The Tantric Laws of Intimacy by Laurie Handlers right now. You'll learn how to make love in the unknown, take the performance anxiety and reaching a goal out of sex. You'll learn subtle ways of communication and really important practices to empower you when dealing with an intimate partner. You'll let go of blame and struggle. Doesn't this sound great? Sex and Happiness puts the innocence back into sex and gives Tantra the respect it deserves. Take charge of your life, physically, emotionally, and spiritually with Sex and Happiness by Laurie Handlers, only $19.99 paperback and $14.99 ebook. Order your copy today by going to butterflyworkshops.com. That's butterflyworkshops.com for your copy of Sex and Happiness.
My question for people right now is, if you're a woman who could use a little zest and zing in your arousal response, or maybe you know women or a woman who could use this, because many women say that their feelings of desire, arousal, and sexual satisfaction don't happen as naturally or as often as they'd like. So I want to tell you about Zestra, because Zestra was developed to meet this much-needed option for women. Zestra's safe and a patented blend of botanical oils and extracts, and it's created to help women have increased sexual sensations. Zestra comes in convenient single-dose personal packets. Each packet keeps the essential arousal oils and extracts free, fresh, and safe from light. And with application of Zestra, it starts to work within 3 to 5 minutes. And at about 10 minutes, there's something called the Zestra Rush. And that can last up to about 45 minutes. The great news is that Zestra can be used as frequently as you like during each sexual experience. Now, I'm somebody who believes that all women deserve sexual satisfaction. That's why I do this show, in case you hadn't noticed. So I believe that men and women deserve sexual satisfaction. So if you're a woman who isn't getting that kind of arousal response that you want, please call 877-426-8047. That's 877-426-8047. And please remember to say you heard about Zestra from Laurie Handlers on the Sex and Happiness Show.
We are back with Sex and Happiness. And again, I'm interviewing Orla Quinn. And Orla is putting together a summit on conscious sexuality. She herself is a shamanic practitioner and sacred sexuality coach in Ireland. And she's committed to people's sexual sovereignty so people can live to their fullest creative potential and finding the path of love as service to others. So Orla, we covered a lot in that first segment. Let's talk about some of the subjects that you're wanting to hit. Like there's some in conscious sexuality. There's something about the inner warrior and boundaries. Can you say something about that? Why it's so important for people, the part where they get boundaries?
Yeah, it comes back to what we were talking about before the break, Laurie, around trauma, right? A lot of us start with trauma, and certainly those seeking sexual healing, they do it for that reason, because they have very often, not obviously in all cases, but very often, they come because of their own wounds. And so this is the place to start, right? You don't suddenly jump into the deep end before you do your own healing. And for that, it's really about looking at, where, releasing the trauma. So using the shamanic techniques, some of that was emotional release techniques that we learned in ISTA, like using some of these techniques to help release trauma in the body. And it's very, like, this is the powerful aspect of this work, is that it's somatic, it's body work, right? Because as we know, these traumas get locked in the body. It's not just in one, it's not just in the mental realm. It's actually physically, the physical embodiment. So, so you start with working there, but, this is where you also have to start building, because this is where these trauma also affect your ability to know boundaries, right? Because if you've been violated or trespassed your body, then how are you to know what are healthy boundaries, right? So you have to almost start in that place of knowing that you have a right to seek consent, right? That people can't just touch you without consent. And this is a big one, this is a really big one. And I know that Betty Martin has done wonderful work on this with the Wheel of Consent, and how to ask for what you want and how to say yes, how to say no as well as yes, and name your desires. But it's about bringing healthy boundaries in, sort of knowing the language, because very often we've had no sex education around this, right? Schools are totally ill-equipped for, helping young people establish healthy relationships. So we're starting kind of late in life to sort of to learn the language around this, how to ask, for what we want, and how to say no to what we don't want. So, this takes this takes time, you know. Again, this doesn't happen overnight. This takes time. It takes practice. It takes many, many different relationships to engage with in order to really fully establish what is okay with you in relationship. Because, of course, there's no point in doing this by yourself, right? You need a mirror to sort of see, is this okay with me? You know, them being this close or that close, or is it okay for them to spend so much time with me? Or, you know, like, it's not just intimacy, you know,
it's everything.
It's everything. It's everything. It's all relationships. We're talking, you know, family relationships, friend relationships, work colleagues. We're talking the whole spectrum. But I suppose especially this gets triggered in romantic intimacy, right? So, like, this is where in the bedroom, kind of being really clear in terms of what you want and what you don't want is difficult if you've never done that before. So you have to learn these skills.
Especially too, if you are afraid you won't be loved. People are afraid they won't be loved unless they go along. Betty Martin says that the biggest trespass against self is just going along with whatever to be loved, because that's what we had to do as babies. We had to go along with when they want to feed us and which uncle or aunt was going to hold us and who was going to pinch our cheek and everything like that. And so as adults, until we learn what we're a yes to and what we're a no to, we kind of go along just to be polite, to be loved, to fit in, to think well of ourselves and to hope that the other thinks well of us. And we don't realize that when we say no to certain things that are not for and in favor of us, people actually love us more. You know, when we exercise the right of differentiation, like I'm different from you and what I like and say yes and no to may be completely different from what you like and say yes or no to, and I'm loved for that. I'm not loved for going along with, you know. That just makes me part of a crowd. It doesn't make me me.
I actually love that about you, Laurie, because when I did the Esther training where you were teaching at, you really stood out for me. You know, you were bold, you were brash, but I loved it. You know, I loved the sovereignty that you held, that I knew in myself I didn't, and I see in many of the participants around me we didn't. You know, we were in that place of going along with because we knew no better. So, you know, it's so true, like having these role models in your life is so important to sort of see that actually sovereignty is beautiful. You know, sovereignty is so safe because you know the truth with someone who's sovereign. You know, because you can trust their no, you can trust their yes. So there's no hidden agendas, there's no manipulation, there's no real shadow. Shadow doesn't really get to exist in that world where truth resides, right? Exactly. So, you know, so this is where sovereignty is beautiful. Like sovereignty is and that, you know, boundaries is the road to sovereignty. And, you know, this is, for me, this is where it's the first step, really, you know, and this is not saying you have to be not in relationship or, you know, out of relationship to do this. I mean, you can do this in relationship, you can do this with a partner.
Yes.
But the self-sovereignty is, you know, they will love you even more when you're clear on your needs, when you're clear on your boundaries, when you're clear on your no.
Totally. But, you know, I didn't grow up knowing that either. I mean, that didn't get into me either. I don't think I had other kinds of trespasses. I had mental trespasses in my growing up, and I didn't know anything about those things. I mean, to me, what I used to do when I was in relationship was I would hint at the things I didn't like. I would kind of hint I would never directly ask for what I wanted. I would complain and hint. And then when the person did the thing so many times, then I would explode. My boundary would come when I was so angry that there would be an explosion like a volcano, and they go, what? What are you so angry at? You know, I've done this 25 times before and you didn't get upset. No, I did get upset. I just didn't tell you because I went along with, you know, and I hinted, and that was a terrible strategy. And so I used to have these big blow-ups. Yeah, and then on the other side, I didn't also respect anybody else's boundaries because I didn't know what they were. I didn't have any. So they used to then have to get mad at me for trespassing their boundaries. It's so important. It's such a key piece to growing up that that's just totally overlooked. They think that just saying no, whoever the powers that be, who are in charge of what kind of sex education we're going to get. Boundaries are important for all education. It's not just sex education, and just say no doesn't cut it. It's not a solution. So what we're talking about is really self-love, and then being able to love another and be loved. When I have boundaries, it's easy for me to love another because I don't let them cross my boundaries. And my boundaries, by the way, are flexible. So once I know someone respects my boundaries, I don't need them to be as staunch as they were in the beginning, except about some things. I mean, there are some things that's it. I'm not doing that. You know, no, don't ask me that. That's not for me. But it's so much easier to communicate and be clear, and then know that, yeah, I'm being loved for who I really am, not for some pretense mask that I'm putting on to be pleasing. So it's one of your topics too. You know, you have a topic about cosmic union, having intimacy with self and others, and I think it starts with boundaries and with healing, with taking self-responsibility to heal the wounds, and then having boundaries to protect the soft, squishy person inside. You know, I might be brash on the outside, but I'm very squishy on the inside. So I'm like this, you know, to protect, like some butter that's very meltable inside, you know. And if someone doesn't like how I am, it's good. They should go away quick. So I don't have to be invested in them, you know, like, because it hurts. You know, it hurts to be invested in people that don't like, that are very judgmental or whatever. So if they don't, my exterior is designed to have them run away quick.
I think, you know, like Laurie, I think this is the thing, you know, with boundaries. It's, you know, it's like I say, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to reestablish boundaries. And it does mean letting go. It's like what you said, you know, not everybody's going to like me, and that's okay, you know, because that's healthy as well. We're not here to please everyone, you know. We grew up thinking we had to, right? Certainly here in Ireland, we're a yes kind of country where you're here to please others. So, you know, there has been a lot of deconstruction around that, but, you know, it's about the truth of it is that we're not here to please. We're here to honor our own needs. We're here to honor ourselves, and in doing so, we get to honor other people in that high space, in that high regard, right? So, you know, by pleasing others, we're operating in this low ego kind of state of being, and we're attracting others in that state of being. You know, it's like what you were talking about earlier, the shadow. You attract those that you need, and you know, and you describing around being triggered, and how you would be triggered and then finally explode. But you know, it's like you needed someone to really see, to egg you on to do that, so that you could see it. And this plays out in a relationship. This is why relationships are good, because we actually need to see what we're holding on to.
Yes.
And you know, and go into that place of correction, right? Into that place of healing those old wounds, so that we can grow. I mean, our job here is to grow. Our job is to constantly change, right? Like, this is the other, I have to blow that other myth out of the water, that, you know, we're not here to change, right? People don't like change. People like to stay the same, do the same thing. No, we're here to change. We're constantly changing. As you said, boundaries are flexible. Yeah, because it's the thing. If you do the foundational work, then you get to be flexible. Then you get to sort of, you know, play with your boundaries, you know, see where you can test them a bit more, right? Because ultimately what we're doing, and look at my hands are in the place of the heart, it's like we're constantly pushing the door open to our heart, because of course if we've got too many boundaries, we're keeping this closed, right? So we're constantly pushing out and breaking the cage of our heart, so that we are letting the love in. We're letting the love in, and we're able to give the love.
Beautiful. Well, I call the other thing barriers. So if we're barriered, then we don't let the heart open, but boundaries are permeable. I see boundaries as like cellular membranes. It keeps out toxins, but it lets in nutrients. And the other thing is barriers. You know, you reminded me of something with the heart. I guess someone asked me recently, what would I tell my younger self? What do I know now that I would tell my younger self? And I would tell my younger self to not worry about getting my heart broken. I would get my heart broken over and over again, because my heart just expands every time. And the other piece is that I attracted very strong, very oppositional people to me in those days, long ago. And because I had to stand up to them, I became who I am now, you know, like I'm sort of badass, you know, and I couldn't be this badass person if I hadn't faced what I faced. And so if people could actually take their traumas when they get conscious of them and see that they're a gift and turn it around, rather than staying a victim to it, they would receive some very big empowerment. That's my stand on that stuff, you know, that turning everything, making lemonade from every lemon. So I needed to say that because it's in the mix of what we're talking about, you know. We need to go to break again for a moment. So let me just say, when we come back, we'll talk about the summit. You can give us some highlights of some of the speakers. I think you have a lineup, some of the things they'll be talking about, and maybe we can touch on one other important thing. Everything we're talking about here is important, like important to everyone and to Ireland in particular, you know, so it's universal. And it's time for this to happen in a big way in Ireland. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about what we're talking about. So, anyway, you're listening to Sex and Happiness. I'm with Orla Quinn, and we are having a delightful time. We're visiting as well as doing an interview. We're having a soul connection about things that are super important on the planet right now, and on how people are dealing with themselves shamanically and psychologically and physically, embodying certain practices to heal both. It's both personal and transpersonal. It's for myself, but it's also from women, because I am one. It's also for men, because I relate to them. It's also for my country, your country. It's political, and it's personal and transpersonal. it's important for people in this day and age to get empowered, and that's really what we're talking about. So we'll be right back, and we'll talk about the Conscious Sexuality Summit and why it's so important for you.
So many times you've heard Laurie talk about emotional release on this show. She says over and over again how important it is for you and your loved ones. Now you can do emotional release in the privacy of your own home. And you can practice Latihan too, meditation that prepares you for making love in the unknown. In her CD, Shamanic Release and Latihan, she creates a safe and sacred space in which you can do the powerful work Laurie is known for in her Butterfly Workshops courses. Laurie sets you up with the proper positioning and breathing. Then she guides you through each emotional state to the beat of tribal African rhythms. This CD actually provides an easy way to do emotional clearing work on a regular basis. Order your copy of Shamanic Release and Latihan today and watch your relationships walk free of emotional baggage. To order your copy, go to butterflyworkshops.com right now.
As a sex and happiness coach, I understand that increased sexual participation intensifies sexual responsiveness and desire, as well as overall health and well-being. My experience with the Sybian has personally increased my sexual response, and I can now train women to use this machine to have peak orgasms as often as possible. I strongly believe this will add to their health and well-being whether they have a partner or not. The beauty and the miracle of the human body is that it adapts and changes much more rapidly than people change their beliefs or their opinions. The Sybian can make any woman's body more resilient with each peak orgasm. Sybian is an amazing experience, often described as the Lamborghini of sex toys. If you're a woman and you can get yourself to look at Sybian, you should do so. It won't take away from your partner. It will only add. Trust me on this. I love my Sybian. Go to Sybian.com. That's SYBIAN.com, or call 1-800-253-6135. That's 800-253-6135, and say Laurie Handlers told you about Sybian. And by the way, if you do have a partner, ask about Venus for Men. That's Venus, VENUS, for men. We are back with Orla Quinn and myself, Laurie Handlers. We're talking about conscious sexuality, and the time for it has come in Ireland and everywhere else. So we're focusing today on Ireland, but we're, anyone else listening, this is for you too. Don't think you can escape it. If you didn't grow up with this stuff, I don't know what planet you grew up on. Really, I don't. So Orla, tell us a little more about the Conscious Sexuality Summit. You're going to have are you going to have speakers on soul purpose? Are you going to have, unity, cosmic unity, being loved, like loving the earth, loving people? What are the subjects, and who are some of the people that you've gathered?
Yeah, right. Well, it's it's a big question. So I have there's 14 speakers altogether, and some of them, they're not all Irish based.
Okay.
I have a few international guests speaking as well. Some of those international guests have worked in Ireland, so they know the Irish context, like yourself. But some of them haven't. So some of the US guests I have is that your listeners might know is Alina Tonetti, Birth into Being, and Patricia Alber, Mutual Awakening, so evolutionary relationships. So these are big names, big teachers. They have been for me anyway. So I'm excited. I'm super excited about who has answered the call, and And yeah, and like I say, it's been a wonderful opportunity for a little bit of networking to happen in Ireland, and just with those practitioners, those of us who are doing the work. I'm based in County Clare, so in a very kind of rural area of Ireland. And it's just nice to know that I'm part of a bigger network, right? And I think it's important that we touch base. It's important that we build these structures to start communicating and supporting one another. So in terms of the subject areas, I mean, so diverse. We have talked. I mean, people come from different backgrounds. Some shamanic backgrounds. So they talk about some of the stuff that we have actually covered in this particular interview. Others have come from more sexological body work, sort of Joseph Kramer's work. And so there's a kind of there's a diversity of lens in which some of us have come to the work. And so that's been really interesting to sort of explore with people, because, when you don't come from that background, it's nice to know, it's nice to hear, it's nice to get a little taste of their journey. It's nice to get a taste. And this is kind of how I start each interview, is really exploring their journey, just like you've done with me, explore their journey of where they came and where they trained, who they trained with, and, what shaped their work today, basically. So the topics have been diverse to, exploring this topic of boundaries, consent, to looking at the sovereignty, the sovereign self, the sovereign truth, to then coming into this right relationship style, right? This kind of, the more that we can self-love, like we talked about, the more then we can relate in a healthy, loving way, and our relationships just keep evolving then, right? So it's like our heart keeps expanding the more we welcome in these relationships of love. And so that evolutionary, that kind of, like, I feel even in the interviews they've been evolutionary in style. Like I've come a long journey of interviewing since May. Since the beginning of May through to the end of May, and it's almost been like an evolution in the subject areas that we've been touching on. So this conscious relating is an area that I'm super interested in talking about, because this is where we're evolving to, right? So this is the beauty, this is the love, this is the expansion, this is the cosmic union, that this is the full potentiality, that when you commit to this journey, that's what you get to experience, right? And it's almost like you want to show people the end result, especially for those who are coming from places of trauma, that that they know that there's a tunnel, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that this gets better.
Well, I want to say something about that, just about conscious relating and about how it evolves. For me, I knew what I wanted to say before about trauma and about victimhood. Like for me, when I got in touch with the masculine inside of me, this is part of what I got from ISTA. When I got in touch with the masculine part of me and I realized that I could keep myself safe without having to fight all the time, like I just could be safe, then my feminine could explore. Before that, she was like locked up in there, and I was being in the masculine all the time. And when my feminine could come out to play, I attracted a whole different kind of person. Yeah. It's so funny how that just, so I've attracted a much more masculine, like my partner is super masculine, and he might be the first one ever to be holding the masculine so powerfully, because my girl came out. Yeah. And it's so funny. It's the last thing I ever expected. it's subtle. Some of these things, some of these lessons, they seem like big bang when I'm learning them, but then I don't know how they're going to translate. Yeah. And when they get translated into life and into action, then I go, oh, that's interesting. It's just like funny stuff.
Well, I know, yeah, like this is the thing, we're talking about evolving relationships, but actually when you see it in real life, that's when you have to pinch yourself, right? Like that's when you have to go, oh, this is what it looks like. Wow, am I really in this? Wow, okay. So I'm starting to attract the relationships I always wanted in my life, but I never thought I was worthy of, or I never, or I just, they weren't even in my periphery, right? they weren't even in my view. And so it's like we evolve. The more we evolve internally, the more that evolvement is reflected at us. So we, so we start to see these relationships materializing, and that's, like this is where I, what I said before about change. We need to get comfortable with change. Like we really need to get comfortable with letting go of the old, because you won't evolve when you're stuck in the old story. So this is what you get when you start to evolve. You start to grow, self-love, and get all of that reflected back at you in terms of your relationships. So I'm delighted for you that you see that now in your partner. You see that strong masculine, that embodied masculine, because you've healed your inner masculine, right, Laurie?
Yeah, so good, so true. And it's funny, and then he says to me, I'm just following your lead. He says, the masculine is informed by the feminine. I just watch what you're doing and what's happening for you, and then I know what to do. And I just go, yeah, okay, if you say. It's great. It's and it's a cosmic joke. So cosmic union, I'm just going to put in my 2 cents about cosmic union. Cosmic union is all informed. It's created by the cosmic joke. And it's a question of whether you could see where you're at, whoever you are, It's a question of if I could see where I'm at any given time, if I can rise above the drama or rise above the whatever I'm in, the thickness of it, and go, oh yeah, this is teaching me this. We can't always do it when we're in it, but sometimes we can. And I would say that cosmic union, just in terms of, what you're covering in your summit, it's important for people to look and see, where am I at now? What am I attracting, and what is it telling me about where I'm at, and why I'm in union right now with this. Mm-hmm. And then we can either move or stay, or like whatever. It's there's some humor in all of it. One thing about me, I don't take anything too seriously. So so these are really serious subjects, and we still have to see some humor in all of it, and lightness in all of it, and get the vision. So yeah, it's great. Yeah. I'm very excited for what you're doing. I wish you the best with it. We need to tell people how to get in touch with you. What's your website so people can come and find the summit, and find more about you? So let's give them the info. What's the site?
Yeah, right. So I have my website, and details of the summit will be on the website. Okay. That's where I'll be driving people to. The landing page will be there, and that'll bring people into the summit. Okay. You have to just register. So my website is triskelheart.com. Triskel is the spelling Triskele. I can give you the wording of that if you need it.
Triskel is. Spell it slower. Do it a
Okay.
little slower. Triskel.
T-R-I-S-K-E-L-E. Heart. Heart.
Okay.
.com. Triskel. So just for those of you that are wondering what the word Triskel is, it's the symbol. It's the triple symbol, Irish symbol that you see on Newgrange, some of the stones in Ireland, and I'm sure you can look it up on Google Images or whatever. You'll see it's a spiral, 3 spirals on a kind of a spinning wheel. But yeah, so it's an Irish symbol that is very significant to me.
Is it Irish or is it really predating? Is it Celtic?
Yeah, it goes back to the Celtic. I'm not sure exactly of its origin. I know that it's found in a lot of the ancient sites here that would be Celtic or even predate them as well. So, it has different symbology, the triple feminine, the triple masculine. I mean, Patrick, when he came over, talked about the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, the triple goddess. Also, life, death, rebirth. It has the significance of 3 and the triangle. It's all beautiful. There.
All right, so triskelheart.com. So thank you for being my guest today. Thank you for wanting to do this, wanting to explore this with me. I feel honored. And I want you to kick it off and really go for it. And I hope you get a tremendous audience. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Laurie. I've really enjoyed going into this with you, and I love the fact that you've been here and the context, and I think there's been a really open, rich conversation as a result of that as well. So thank you for being so open and sharing.
Thank you. And I think I've been in County Clare.
Bog Hill Centre, yeah.
Yeah, I've been in County Clare also. I've been to Ireland 3 times. Each time was more amazing than the next. So when the last one was always amazing. So thank you. And I wish the best to you. And I wish the best for people in Ireland as well, for their speedy healing and self-sovereignty to take over. And everyone out there listening, thank you for listening. I couldn't do this without you. We couldn't do this without you. So thank you for that. And stay tuned when I'll have another amazing guest for you the next time on Sex and Happiness. This is Laurie Handler signing off.
Thank you for joining us today for Sex and Happiness. To learn more about Laurie and her work, please go to butterflyworkshops.com or follow her on Twitter or Facebook. You can send her an email at sexandhappiness@gmail.com. We'll see you again right here next week for another edition of Sex and Happiness.